Okay, so the question is, what are the 5 things I wish someone had told me when I first started in this music thing? And going right off the top of my head, the first thing that comes to mind is that people are part of communities, networks, they have pre-existing relationships, hierarchies, pecking orders, and you or me, we're the dirty-faced kids, the urchin on the sidewalk. Imagine the world's black and white. Newspapers are blowing down the sidewalk. Snow is swirling around and stinging your cheeks, and you haven't eaten a substantial meal for 3 days, and your nose is pressed against a window. You're looking in the window, this swanky establishment, and inside there's a feast. There's a party in progress, and you're studying those people inside. You'd give anything to be in there with them, but they got these 900-pound gorillas posted at the door whose job it is to make sure you don't get in. And the people on the other side of that window, they don't even see you out there. Sorry, invitation only, and you're not invited. So, how do you get invited in? And even at the lowest levels of the music business, it's like an exclusive club, like a fraternity. Somebody has to be willing to vouch for you, to sponsor you, to bring you in as a guest. So you have to ask yourself, what can you bring to the party? What do you have that they want? And how do you get yourself on their radar? Well, when I played Pee Wee football, my uncle used to say, if you want to get in the game, go stand next to the coach. There is no substitute for just being on the scene, always ready to play. You got to go to the clubs, you got to go to the shows, make acquaintances, start building relationships, remember people's names, say thank you. And eventually, somebody who knows something is going to give you a chance. They'll listen to your stuff, they'll add you to a gig. And over the course of the time, you'll go from being an outsider to being one of the people everybody knows. One day you'll be that kid on the sidewalk with his face pressed up against the glass, and somebody inside will say, hey, what are you doing out there? Come on in. And in my experience, that's how it works. Now, the second thing to understand is that some people in the business are under tremendous financial pressure. Like when the Little Wretches were, first starting out, the guy who owned and booked the best rock and roll club in our city used to be sitting at the bar from late morning to early afternoon, taking calls, doing business. Well, I'd call, I'd stop in to speak in person, and he never totally dismissed me. He always said, call me on Thursday or call me next week, but he never gave me an outright no. He must have turned me down at least 100 times. And then finally, after we'd made a name for ourselves playing other venues, he gave us a few gigs. But he explained to me, you care about whether you should be playing an A or an A minor. The only music I care about is how much that cash register rings. Right? He's trying to run a business, trying to turn a profit. And as far as that guy's concerned, your musical performance is supposed to attract people with money in their pockets, and their money is supposed to end up in his pocket. And then he gives you a cut. From his point of view, that's how it works. He's kind of like a pimp, and you're one of the earners in his stable. Get it? Well, if that's what he is, and I'm working for him, what does that make me? Well, that's not what I want to be. Is that what you want to be? Now, a third thing to consider is that you're like a restaurant. Are you serving Italian, Chinese, Middle Eastern, Mexican? Are you serving appetizers, entrees? You have to have an identity. Now, my band, the Little Wretches, we made early in our career a great album called Beyond the Storming Blast, and it got enough attention that a music business attorney invited us to his office in New York City, and he was interested in shopping us to major labels. He was certain that he could get us a deal. But he explained that the first 3 songs on our album sounded like 3 different bands. He could get any one of those bands signed, but we had to decide which band we were going to be. We didn't like that. We mumbled something about the Beatles' White Album, how each song was different, everything from Helter Skelter to Dear Prudence. But he said the Beatles came up playing one kind of music, and after they were already famous, they were able to branch out. What were we? Were we a Celtic band, an Americana band, a Beatlesque band? For much of our careers, the Little Wretches were the great mystery sandwich. You got to take a bite before you know what it is. Try it, you'll like it. But most people want to know what you're putting in their mouths. They want to know what's in there before they take a bite. Reasonable. Now, number four, you have to get good at waiting. Everything in this business takes longer than you expect it to. Now, I'm a trauma survivor, so I'm afflicted with something they call a foreshortened sense of future. My brain is hardwired to survive minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. Yesterday's once upon a time, and tomorrow is some sweet day. All that feels real is right here and right now. But I just read an email from a venue that I contacted in 2020. And the venue wants to know if I'm interested in playing a gig in 2023. That's 2 years from now. But that's how real businesses run. They have a long-term plan, a short-term plan. They have goals, they have landmarks, thresholds, target numbers, deadlines, protocols. And what you want may be waiting for you 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So waiting, being prepared, putting in the work and waiting. Are you sure you're in it for the long haul? Now, you asked for 5 things, and I'm going to try to tie it all together with one unifying point, maybe the most important thing. Now, my 4 previous points were, very worldly, pointing to practical realities of the music business. But the truth is, I spent my entire career listening to advice that I'm not equipped to follow. There's a song in the Easy Rider soundtrack, the movie Easy Rider, song by the Byrds called Wasn't Born to Follow. And that's me. That's Little Wretches. I started as an outsider. I'm still an outsider, and I'll finish as an outsider. I'm indie all the way, punk rock, DIY. More philosophically, you might say I'm in the world, but not of the world. I serve the spirit, the muse. Driven by an intuitive sense, the breath of inspiration. I go where the spirit calls me and trust that there's a reason, even if the reason doesn't make any sense to anybody else, and even if it doesn't make any sense to me. So if you're in this for money and fame and adoration, I'm not the one to listen to, because I'm a fanatic. I've been known to utter phrases like, all things work together for good. So all I'm saying is if you're not called by the spirit, by inspiration, then you should take advice from somebody else. Don't listen to me. I mean, if you're not called by the spirit, you ask me, you're just wasting your time. But, that's my 5 bits, my advice for what it's worth. Take it or leave it. It's worked for me. Bye-bye.